This video is sponsored by ExpressVPN. Click the link below to start browsing a better, safer internet, or stick around to the end of the video to learn more. Okay, still over here in LA, wrapping up my coverage of the Summer Games Fest. One of the games I got to go hands-on with is Immortals of Aveum. Now, this was revealed last year at the Game Awards in a flashy CG trailer thing. They did a gameplay trailer a little while ago, not too long actually, and it's actually coming very soon. It's out around July 20th, right? So it's basically done. It's ready to go out the door. I got the chance to play about 45 minutes of it, and I got to record my own footage. So what you're seeing here is all that. I got to play on a keyboard and mouse. I had the option for a controller, but I chose keyboard and mouse. And yeah, I played through the entire mission, and I got to chat with some of the developers at the end, which was great. So this game is actually from a studio called Ascendant. Now, this is founded by one of the former creative directors of Sledgehammer Games. He left Activision to form this new thing, and so there's obviously like a lot of COD in this, which you will see for yourself. And the other people that joined this studio were actually from Telltale. When Telltale collapsed, quite a few of them came over to this new venture. The studio has scaled up significantly since then, and this is their first game, Immortals of Aveum. It's being published by EA under their Originals label. That used to be a sort of like indie label where they're doing little things, but since then they've said that they are looking to evolve that label to be, I don't know, they use some sort of language, I forget what it is now, but the general gist of it is, don't expect indies on that label anymore, which I think is a shame. It was cool that EA were doing that, but I guess they want to use that label now to get more surefire hits, and I guess they feel like this is a surefire hit, but I guess we'll wait and see. So, I'll tell you right off the top, I think this is pretty cool. There's some stuff about it I like. There are a few question marks I have about it as I go into it, but I think in general terms, I didn't walk away feeling like, oh yeah, fuck yeah man, I need to play more of this right now. It's just kind of, it feels like a video game that exists, that people can play if you want. Like, it's optional, right? And obviously every video game is optional, of course, but I think Immortals of Aveum didn't really present an essential case for why you must play this game, or at least not in the demo that I played, not in the trailers that I've seen to this point. So while I think this is cool, I do wonder how well it might do, but let's come back to that at the end. For now, I will tell you, the narrative setup for this is that you are a young kid or whatever who was plucked out of unfortunate circumstance because of the fact that you can control 3 colors of magic. That's what they call it here. There's the red, the green, and the blue. Most other people can only control the 1, but you are special. You can control 3, and you have been trained from your youth to join this sort of like military unit. And the mission that I played was actually mission 3. The first 2 missions were very much the narrative setup prologue type missions. This is meant to be the first real mission where I'm out there trying to prove myself to my commander and whatever. So it's kind of a big deal for him, narratively speaking. Now, the cutscenes and the storytelling here, it's a lot, right? And you get a feeling that narrative and story and characters is a really big focus of this game. That makes sense, I guess, since there's a lot of ex-Telltale people here, and, you know, obviously Telltale people were all about the story. That's being married to, you know, some very COD-inspired spell-slinging gameplay. But yeah, definitely I spent a good chunk of my demo kind of watching cutscenes or listening to dialogue over this magic radio thing. Yeah, I don't know yet, to be honest with you. It could go either way. I think this could be a cool story full of characters that I'm really interested in, or it could kind of grate and be a bit like, oh, this is trying too hard, it's too much. Like, I think just watch this scene. I think it's a good example of how much they're putting on the line when it comes to narrative, storytelling, and characters.
You've got a fear in your eye you don't need today, son.
Sorry, sir.
Today's the day they turn tail. I know these things. I told your father the same thing at Sundown 10 when he was your age. Sure enough, it happened then too.
Bit easier to swallow when you're immortal, sir.
That's just a silly name to make our enemies cry at night. But this is real. No Roshanian spell gets through this today.
Thank you, General.
So, how did you like that? If you like that scene, you're probably going to like what Immortals of Aveum is doing, right? You get the feeling that That's what it's going for. It's wearing its heart on its sleeve. It's a bit Hollywood, you know what I mean? But if you look at that and you think, that's a little cringe for me, it's a bit much, then chances are you're not going to love this, right? I'm along for the ride for now. I'm willing to give it the benefit of the doubt, and I've always got a soft spot for Ikora anyway, so sure, let's do it, right? I will make the point, though, that this game is about 25 hours long, or at least that's what the developers told me when I spoke to them. That's a long time to play a video game if the story isn't landing for you, so I guess let's hope it clicks into place. Visually, you will notice that Immortals of Aveum is a very pretty game. One of the reasons for that is the fact that it's Unreal Engine 5. It's one of the few games coming very soon that is on Unreal Engine 5, and as a result, it looks very flashy, it looks very next-gen. You certainly see some of the trailers in particular look pretty spectacular, and all of it is running in real-time in-engine. It does look really great. At the same time, I do feel as though it didn't really achieve a kind of visual cohesion or a visual identity that I was really into. Like, it all looks quite flashy and gold-plated and particle effects everywhere, but just the environments that I was sort of exploring, they didn't look that great, and the enemies that I was fighting, they just kind of looked a bit sort of, yeah, magic automaton. It actually reminded me of like those 3D Mark demos, you know, the ones, it's so flashy that it kind of just looks like a tech demo almost. I don't know if it's going to find that visual footing later on. I've seen some trailers that really do look great. There are some set pieces that are obviously later in the game that do look pretty spectacular, but for now, it's kind of just like, I wasn't able to connect with that visual style, right? I was able to connect with the combat. That was good fun, I'll tell you that right now. It is got a lot of that COD DNA in it. You are a magic spell slinger, and you have 3 different types of attacks, at least at the start. It's red, yellow, and blue. Red is essentially a shotgun. Blue is kind of like a marksman rifle, almost. I think that's the best way to frame it, like a single shot. And then the green is essentially a auto-tracking, auto-targeting machine gun. And apparently the green has this cool feature where if you like bend the bullets or bend the spell as the projectiles as they're flying towards the target, they'll do bonus damage. That's kind of cool, but I didn't figure out how to use that. I was only told about that at the end of the demo, right? So there are your 3 different attacks. Now I played on keyboard and mouse, and as I was playing, the control setup that I had was forcing me to scroll through each spell one after another when I wanted to change spells. Similar to like Redfall, for example, when you wanted to change weapons. That really sucked, and I thought that was the only way to do that. I looked in the options briefly if I could rebind it, but I must have missed the option to rebind, because apparently there is the option to bind the specific spells to specific keys, and that is great, because being forced to cycle through it as I was, that wasn't great for me. I didn't love that. But the spells themselves feel pretty cool to use. Like the blue one is meant to be a sort of accurate sharpshooters type build where you're aiming for headshots. Headshots do bonus damage. The shotgun, obviously, you know, bonus damage up close. You also have this kind of whip thing which you can use to pull foes closer to you, and then obviously follow up with a nice shotgun blast, which I did quite a bit. And the machine gun one is just very simple to use. It's point and click and your foe dies. It does feel quite a little bit too easy to use, at least at the beginning, and I wonder if that's going to get harder later. That is a general point I would make about this demo. It's level 3, so it's early on in the game, of course. I was playing on normal difficulty, and there's also an easy mode and a hard mode, but I will say this was very easy as I played through it. And I actually asked the developers about this. I'm like, hey, does this get harder later? Because right now it's pretty cruisy. And they're like, yes, absolutely. It definitely gets very challenging much later on. And there's also that hard mode if you want the additional challenge, right? But, you know, as for the core gameplay, the core feel of running around and shooting stuff and pulling stuff towards you and blowing it up, that all was pretty fun, to be honest with you. I had a good time with it. I can definitely see myself doing that for a little bit and enjoying it. But again, this game is meant to be about 25 hours long. And the question that I have is, does combat have enough depth? Does it have legs enough to go for that full 25 hours? Because that's actually, you know, it's a pretty long time. There are some things that will hopefully add that needed depth. One example are the spells that you get. So you obviously have your gauntlet, which fires the red, green, and blue, but you will also pick up actual spells as you play, which in this demo were bound to sort of 1 through 6 for me on the keyboard, and they are like a ground tremor thing, where like big spikes of earth come up through the ground and damage enemies in front of me in a long sort of corridor. Later on, I unlocked something called Shockwave, which was essentially a big frontal AoE cone where I just do lots of damage to everyone in front of me. These abilities are on really short cooldowns. The resource to be able to use them again is very readily available, and they are meant to be woven in between your regular attacks. So that was cool. I will say that the first 2 that I unlocked felt kind of similar to each other. They just did damage in a general area in front of me, and I wonder what the other spells later on would look like. Something else intended to add longevity and depth is going to be itemization and progression. Itemization, it's stuff that, you know, I found one item like a ring that increased shatter damage by 20%, for example. I picked up a gauntlet that gave me plus 60 armor. The developers did mention to me that there are going to be different variations on my core, you know, red, blue, green gauntlet attacks later on, and they are unlocked through items. And there is also a skill tree where you level up and then you put points into stuff and you're able to specialize in a certain type of magic should you choose. So if you really like running blue and being that kind of like distant precision marksman, then you can put all your points into that and you'll get bonus damage to stuff like critical strikes and whatever else. Yeah, but again, all of that stuff, everything that I saw in terms of itemization really just added more damage to stuff like percentages. I didn't really see anything that changed the functionality of my core gauntlet or the spells that I was casting, right? So I don't know how much that gets changed up over time. Hopefully it's not all just numbers. Hopefully it's other more interesting gameplay varying upgrades, but again, we'll have to wait and see. So yeah, overall though, combat is fun. I will tell you that. I think when you pick up the controls and play it yourself, you'll be like, yeah, this is a good time. But it really is, I think, a question of how long will that good time last and how much depth is there in the combat, and also, you know, how much customization might be available in the longer term. The mission that I was playing through was a really good slice for what to expect through the game, I expect. It had, you know, your narrative front end with a big long cutscene setting everything up. It had plenty of action set pieces, including one moment where I was riding a dragon. It actually had some puzzles as well, and there were quite a few of them actually. Very simple, usually just involved, you know, shooting some crystals to open a door. There was one where I had to kind of like pull this hand down using my whip ability thing or whatever, pull it down so I could cross an area. Again, very simple stuff, but just nice pacing mechanisms because combat is really quite frenetic and it is nice to take a break from it every now and then. All of that did culminate in a boss battle, which was fun. Yeah, I was fighting a big dragon. I was jumping up and down to avoid his attacks. I was running off to the side when he was trying to, you know, he was strafing over the area, and that was it. It was pretty simple, but it was fun. Again, it's only the 3rd level. It was a basic sort of boss. I'm sure we can expect more elaborate bosses later. Certainly we've seen some of those in the trailer. So that was it. That was my demo. As I said, it was about 40-ish minutes, 45 minutes, and I got to have that chat with the developers at the end. I think this looks fun. I do. I think it looks fun. But at the same time, as I said at the top, nothing reached out to me and being like, hey man, yeah, totally, come and play me, you know, like you must play me. I think the story stuff, it felt quite Hollywood in a way that I wasn't really gelling with, but I was like, sure, whatever, let's just go with it for now. Visually, it looks quite spectacular, Unreal Engine 5, but again, I wasn't seeing a visual style or an identity that really spoke to me. The combat side of things was definitely fun. I was having a good time with that, but I did have those questions about how deep that would be or how long I'd want to continue to play this. And yeah, and the itemization and progression stuff as well, I had similar questions. So look, this is coming to EA. They have their subscription service. So if you're on the fence about this one, that might be a good way to try that out. There's also a connection to Game Pass with EA stuff. So eventually this is going to end up on Game Pass as well at some point if you have your doubts. But it's also, you know, a box release coming out in July. Look, what you see on the tin is what you get. Like, they're not hiding anything in these trailers or whatever. You see a dude running around with a gauntlet, shooting stuff with magic. That's exactly what this game is. If you're wondering, is it fun? Is it well made? I think it is fun. I think it is well made. It ran beautifully as I was playing through it. It just feels nice to play. So that all ticks that off. But if you're wondering, are there any surprises in store that make this, like a must purchase? I don't know yet. I'm still asking the same questions after having played through about 45 minutes of it. So I will find out for myself though when I review the title in July when it comes out. And I will of course let you know. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments below. I'll try and get back to them. But that's Immortals of Aveum. And I'm done now. I will see you later. Bye-bye.
Internet security is likely something you're not really thinking about, but it's just as important as locking up your house at night or making sure you don't leave your wallet at the bus stop. It is surprisingly easy for determined hackers to get access to your personal data, especially if you use open Wi-Fi networks at places like school, libraries, or cafes. That is why a VPN is an essential tool to keep your personal data safe, and there's no better VPN than ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN encrypts all of your online data, making it significantly harder for it to be intercepted by people looking to nab your passwords, your online banking details, or other sensitive information you're accessing online. Have you ever bought something from a website and entered your credit card details? That stuff is ripe for interception, and that's exactly the sort of data that ExpressVPN can help protect. It just makes sense to do this stuff. Using the internet without using a VPN is like walking on a construction site without wearing a hard hat. Most of the time, you're probably going to be fine, but that one time that you're not, you're really not. But ExpressVPN isn't just about security, it's also about sidestepping annoying geo-blocking on your favorite streaming services. Do you know how much content we don't get here in Australia due to geo-blocking? It is a lot, and accessing those services with the help of ExpressVPN is always a very eye-opening experience. That's because ExpressVPN effectively tricks the host servers into thinking you are somewhere else, so me being in, say, the United States can appear as though I'm using the internet in Canada, allowing me to access all of that geo-blocked content to my heart's content. ExpressVPN is super easy to install and use, plus you can use it on a variety of devices. It's one of the most flexible and powerful tools in your online security arsenal, while also giving you access to tons of entertainment that you wouldn't have been able to get access to if you were still stuck behind those geo-block walls. For those reasons and many more, it's tremendous value. So to check it out, visit expressvpn.com/skillup, and if you sign up from that landing page, you can get an extra 3 months of ExpressVPN for free. Thanks ExpressVPN for sponsoring the video, and thank you for watching it.